Hello, I'm Connie Uwe, Ambassador at the Maryland Veterans Museum at Patriot Park and resident expert on the War of 1812. I invite you to donate today in honor of all who served to benefit homeless and disadvantaged veterans. When you come here to visit, I can't wait to show you our War of 1812 gallery. Thank you for your generosity.
This is Lieutenant Colonel Antonio B. Smith, United States Marine Corps retired. He is an active member of our veterans community here in Northern Virginia. And I've known Lieutenant Colonel Smith for decades in the Marine Corps. We served together. And we also worked as civilians at Quantico together. So I've known Tony for a very long time. And one of the reasons I asked him to join us for this interview with Veterans in Transitions because he does a number of different things out there in the local community, in the veterans community, and he has his own business. So we want to give Tony Smith an opportunity to join us this afternoon. One of the things we had talked earlier about Tony coming out of Clark Atlanta University in 1988. He was with the Morehouse College NROTC, and I had asked him how many students graduated from Morehouse or were put into the pipeline from the Morehouse NROTC. Tony, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Sure. Again, Tony Smith and retired Lieutenant Colonel. Thank you so much, sir, for allowing me to come on and interview today. I think this is really important. So, like you said, we go back decades. I can remember you mentoring me as I was a major. So you've always been there for, Marines coming behind you and supporting them. So I just appreciate this and appreciate you for always being a mentor. And to go to your question regarding the number of officers that we put out from the NROTC at Morehouse, I estimate that number around 300. We've started the program in 1980. The program started at Morris Brown, and after 4 years, it moved over to Morehouse College, and it's been at Morehouse the entire time. At one period, we were an independent unit, 1987 to around 1993. We were an independent NROTC, but during the other time periods, and even now, we're cross-enrolled with Georgia Tech.
Okay, that's great. That's great, Tony. Thank you very much. Tony, we just want to get to know you from your background. I believe you're from Atlanta, Georgia. And could you tell us about your home and growing up in that part of the country, Tony? Please?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Great time growing up in Atlanta. Great time normal childhood, like most kids that I grew up around. Two-parent household. Both of my parents were, working class people. My father worked for General Motors. My mother, she worked for a factory. And I did normal things that most kids do, go outside, at the time and play, ride bikes, play marbles, so I had what I would call a very normal childhood, love sports, like student government and leadership, even at a young age. Many of my family members from the larger family migrated to New York in the 60s. So I would visit New York each year to see family members. So I thought that was very interesting, traveling, a Southern boy in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and then going to New York, seeing the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, the subway. So that was a very good experience growing up.
Absolutely. Who was most influential to you, Tony, as a young man? And who would you say?
Yes, sir. My football coaches, my coaches in general, once I got to high school and I met my football coach, Coach Lester, and then basketball coach, Coach Adams, they were very influential because they provided guidance and they were very straightforward people. dealing with young men, informing us on matters that we needed to be aware of. I don't think that, well, I know that they didn't particularly see us as being, making it to the pros. I can remember them telling we did have one player to make it to the professional level, Richard Dent. So that's pretty good with Chicago, the one player. But for most of us, the coaches would tell us you're probably not going to make it into the professional level, and that was, truth. That was the truth. And but what they taught us about at a young age was how to be a man, even as a teenager, the importance of being a man, being where you're supposed to be on time, being responsible. Your word means something. Treat people like you expect to be treated. And they spent time with us talking about college and talking about, work life and those things that were important for us to understand, even as we were at the high school. So definitely my high school coaches.
How did you end up going to Clark Atlanta University, Tony?
Yes, sir. The one of my coaches was also dual hatted as my counselor,
Mhm.
and they knew I wanted to join the Marine Corps. And my counselor knew someone at Morehouse that knew the NROTC staff, and basically called out on my behalf to see if there were any opportunities for me. And lo and behold, there were, opportunities for the NROTC. So that counselor connected me with Master Chief Hutchison, who is a legend as it pertains to Morehouse NROTC. And the rest is history. Master Chief came to my high school, spoke to me, and basically recruited me into the NROTC program. And I'll be remiss if I didn't mention Commander Espy. He was the officer in charge at that time. So that's how I basically ended up at Clark Atlanta University. I, again, just the utmost respect for my counselor. He told me also that, you're only going to have one opportunity probably to go to college, and you'll have multiple opportunities to join the Marine Corps. But if you allow this opportunity to pass, then you're probably not going to get it back. And I think in a young man's life, when he's receiving mentorship, the part of that mentorship is trusting the person that's giving you the advice.
Mhm.
And I trusted this particular individual, sort of, blind faith, but in a sense too, but I felt like he was, pointing me in the right direction. And that's probably the best advice I took from my counselor and my coach to go to Clark Atlanta University and join the Morehouse NROTC.
Tony, while you were at Clark Atlanta, were you on the football team?
I was not on the football team. Master Chief at the time, sort of funny, he told me, hey, if you go get injured playing football, you may lose your NROTC scholarship. So I took that advice as well. I knew how expensive tuition, it was expensive then. And so I took that advice and didn't play football in college.
That's great. He gave you some great advice, didn't he?
Yes.
Absolutely. So, Tony, you said that even before you joined your NROTC unit at Clark Atlanta through Morehouse College, that you wanted to join the Marine Corps. How come?
I wanted to join the Marine Corps. Family members were in the Marine Corps, so I had some knowledge of the Marine Corps. And then I liked the aspect of first to fight. That appealed to me. I think the perceived at the time, because I didn't know the gritty nature of the Marine Corps, the excellence in war fighting. So that attracted me. There was probably some rite of passage in that too. Maybe I felt that if I joined the military, that was a rite of passage as a young man. So that's why I was leaning more towards the Marine Corps.
Okay, now, Tony, you've made a decision to go, choose Marine Corps option out of ROTC. That is, you could have gone into the Navy or into the Marine Corps. Tell us about OCS, Officer Candidate School, Tony.
Officer Candidate School was interesting. It was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. And I can remember arriving at OCS, and the first night, it was almost like we didn't get an opportunity to sleep. And I asked myself, what have I gotten myself into? Because basically the training environment, it was a very demanding training environment for officers. And then quickly you started seeing other candidates, drop on request or leave OCS. And so you could see the number in your platoon dwindling. The training was extremely tough. The obstacle course, the education aspect of it. But I think I was well prepared coming from the Morehouse NROTC and from Clark Atlanta University. I didn't have what I consider, any trouble with the training or undergoing the training. Naturally, in that environment, they add stress to it, but we were prepared. I don't think anyone in my class failed OCS. So it was an interesting time. It made us think, and now we look back and we laugh on some of the crazy things that happened while we were at OCS.
Well, Tony, within this environment of training and preparing individuals to attend OCS, you said you felt that you were well prepared coming out of your ROTC unit. How what how do they make sure that you were prepared, Tony, in your opinion?
They started with an inform. It was probably a week of training at the Naval Air Station, Atlanta, just to indoctrinate us into the military in physical training, the importance of education, and the importance of discipline. As I continued through the NROTC, as a freshman, I was in the pool every day, every weekday from September to Christmas. I was in the swimming pool. So the school had a great swim program. Then we had physical training each week. Our assistant Marine officer instructor and our Marine officer instructor shared classes with us, knowledge. And so just doing that for 3 years before OCS, it elevated, my knowledge and my physical training so that when I went to OCS, it wasn't a matter of not being smart enough or intelligent enough or being able to undergo the physical demands. I found those things. I found that I was extremely ready for that. The mental stress, sometimes you can't replicate that until you're in that environment. So, but I think being prepared physically, you adapt easier to a stress-filled environment when you're physically fit and when you're mentally sound, and it doesn't have as much of an impact on you. Now, it was tough. I don't want people to think, someone seeing this interview, that it's not tough when you're having to stay up at night to study and do some of the other things that are required in officer candidate school. But I was prepared. I was prepared, and my classmates were prepared for OCS.
I think it's very important, Tony, that you have mentioned the fact that when you're physically fit and physically prepared, it alleviates a lot of unnecessary stress. You can approach each day acknowledging that whatever they come at you physically, you're going to be able to handle it. So I believe that's just a significant lesson that should be distributed, that should be disseminated to all who's watching this interview. That it was that your NROTC unit at Morehouse made sure that you were physically prepared and mentally, and that in turn ensured that you were mentally prepared. So
Yes, sir. And we were confident too, sir. During those 3 years, you develop a lot of confidence.
Oh
I
yeah.
think confidence is extremely important. You learn responsibility by being responsible. And so we were put in positions while I was in the NROTC to learn what responsibility was about. Coming from an HBCU, as you know, there's a long history of veterans and other, government workers and federal workers. So we had a rich history of people that could talk to us about being in the military that, we looked up to, Montfort Point Marines, the Golden 13, and probably something that many people don't know, Henry O. Flipper, who was
Mm,
the first graduate of the military academy at West Point. He was an Atlanta University graduate in 1869.
wow.
He left there and he went to West Point, graduated from West Point, and he was the first African American officer in the Army in the 1870s. So when you know that type of history and you look back and maybe you want to, feel sorry for yourself, but you go, hey, this guy went through West Point in the 1869, 1870s. He was ostracized, isolated, no one talked to him for the entire time. So now, you fast forward that 120 years or so, and you're standing on the shoulders of giants. If you think from Flipper all the way until the time that, I was in college, 84, we've had a lot of people to go down range. And so we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and you just have the pride. You can't let people down. When you look at something, there's a bond. There's a bond. Even though I went through CAU, Clark Atlanta University, over 100 and something years, I'm bonded to some of the people that went before. And even like Montfort Point, you, sir, there's a bond. So sometimes you've got to buckle down and fight and do the things that you need to do. So that confidence, I would tell a young person too, you have to have confidence in yourself and be able to get knocked down, dust yourself off, stand up, and keep moving. Keep moving.
As a military historian, Tony, those are great words because I did not know that Henry O. Flipper had come out of Atlanta and that he had already graduated from college when he went to West Point. But that's great. That's great information to know. Having gone to the Naval Academy and familiar with our first black graduate who was Wesley Brown. Wesley Brown did not graduate until 1949. So West Point was almost a century ahead of us as far as black graduates are concerned. But
Yes, sir.
that's great information. The confidence piece, Tony. The confidence piece is our next area that we're going to talk about because you going into OCS, coming out with a commission in the Marine Corps, you eventually chose infantry. All right. And that is significant because we have whereas the Marine Corps preaches combat arms quite prolifically, we still had a gap in the numbers of black officers who chose infantry, artillery, maybe tanks. All right,
Yes, sir.
then on into aviation. Tell us why you chose to go into the MOS of infantry.
Yes, sir. While I was at the basic school, and you get that initial indoctrination that, every officer is a rifle platoon commander.
Right.
And you know as well as I do, in the Marine Corps, they're the focal point is, the infantry and those skills associated with the infantry.
Mm.
So at the basic school, I just had sort of a natural liking to the infantry skills. Those type of skills, maybe because of my football background, I just had an ability to, do them. I mean, whether it was the shooting, or whether it was patrolling, the defense, the offense, the attack, so I didn't make the decision to go infantry before the basic school. And I think that was important. I wanted to see it. But after a couple of weeks of going out, squad exercise, offense and defense, then it sort of went back in my mind when I was in college, when some of my instructors said, hey, you really do need to go infantry. We were always told in college, pursue the combat arms.
Hmm.
So I hadn't made up my mind though with the combat arms because of some of the pressures, I think, from my family because I was told, from my family, hey, Vietnam, a lot of African Americans died over there in the infantry. Hey, when you join the Marine Corps, go and get you a skill, something where you're not going to basically have to go on the front lines. So I had all of that going on in the back of my mind. But once I started, with the field skills and those things came, fairly easy to me. And I realized that, combat arms is the way to go in the Marine Corps. I said, hey, let's go infantry. Let's do it all the way. If you're going to be in the Marine Corps, hey, let's be in the Marine Corps. So, so I raised my hand for infantry. And it turns out at the time with the quality spread, I was at the top of the second, third with the quality spread at the basic school. So I had it when I saw it on the board back then. They would have them in three columns,
Mhm.
and so I knew there were like 4 or 5 infantry billets available in my third, and I was like the second or third person to go out of that third out of that group, and I may have been the first one out of my group to select infantry. So it was an easy one for me to select also with the way that the quality spread worked and how I fell out in the quality spread. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, you want to go infantry? Hey, let's see if you really want to go infantry because you have the opportunity now. There's no
Mhm.
doubt you have the opportunity. So I went ahead and selected infantry.
That's a great story, Tony. You also had even before you went to the basic school, you had an idea of how important combat arms were that you learned when you were in college. That is, your instruction at the ROTC unit had told you to lean towards going into combat arms, and a lot of students just simply do not get that, and tell us about at the basic school. How was your relationship with the SPC and the other instructors? Did they have an influence on you going into infantry? You think?
My company commander was an African American company commander. And I didn't at the time realize how rare that was.
Mhm.
And while to this day I don't know his MOS, but he was a Vietnam veteran and he had seen combat in Vietnam. And during some of the mixers and when we were talking about, MOSs, um, he talked about going into combat arms and going into the infantry. And he talked to me one on one a couple of times. And I think that was very influential. My SPC was an infantryman and he talked to me about it as well. So I had a good relationship with my company commander and my staff platoon commander, and both of them were encouraging me to, pursue infantry. So that everything sort of fell into place, what I was thinking and what people were encouraging me to do. So that definitely helped me make the decision.
Okay, that's great, Tony. Tell us, now we'll talk about your career in the Marine Corps. The fact that you, as a Marine infantryman, you're assigned to infantry billets throughout your Marine Corps career. Tell us, Tony, tell us about your career. Did you, as an infantryman, what would you consider the most significant challenges that you had, and how'd you overcome them?
As an infantryman, I had a normal infantry career, starting from, rifle platoon commander, weapons platoon commander, company commander, staff jobs, operations officer.
Mhm.
I was the inspector instructor as a lieutenant colonel. So I had some of the normal billets that you have. I was the commanding officer of the Jungle Warfare Training Center. I think when we were on Okinawa around the same time when I had that billet there.
Right.
So within I think, uh, within the infantry world, probably my biggest challenge was just always trying to make sure my Marines were as proficient as they can be.
Mhm.
There was a wide array of skills that are required to be a good infantryman. And you can lose those skills if you don't practice them, especially you can lose the skill set if you get on a ship And let's say you're going to take that ship from the West Coast all the way to, the Gulf, or you're going to take it to the Pacific Ocean and you're going to train or do something in that theater of operation. Just the time alone being on ship, you lose skills. So the biggest challenge for me was always ensuring that we were training. On the ship, we were training. We were going to find a task and we were going to train to standard. Always had my Marines to train to standard. I wasn't a big fan of blank ammunition.
Hmm.
So I was the guy in the battalion that always wanted to get more live rounds from other companies and other platoons so that my Marines were accustomed to handling live ammunition and live rounds. So we didn't develop bad habits, negative training. And then you have to be just I won't say ruthless, but you have to be demanding when it comes down to training and training correctly. And all of those skills, once you form those habits, it's easier to maintain those habits. So when you're going to the field, if it's SOP to wear your flak jacket, I made Marines wear their flak jacket. If it's SOP to have a ground guard before you move the vehicle. I learned very early on that sometimes you have to say no. It's not a popularity sort of contest. You're saying no because you're trying to save lives,
Yeah.
and things happen when you don't say no because maybe you're taking a shortcut or something like that. So I would say the most challenging again was just I always wanted to be on my A game and my Marines to be at the same level.
Tony, what operations did you participate in?
I participated in probably the largest operations were Operation Provide Comfort. That was in the first Gulf War time period. It was a operation to provide relief to the Kurds in northern Iraq.
Mhm.
So we were deployed. We were undergoing a Mediterranean deployment.
Right.
And during that deployment, we were directed to northern Iraq. And so we went into northern Iraq with a coalition of other countries in order to protect the Kurds in the northern areas, basically from the Saddam Hussein, basically just was moving in and taking their territory and doing other atrocities. So that was one of the larger operations. And then in 2004, I deployed to Iraqi freedom. During this deployment, I was individual augmentee, so I went to the multinational Corps Iraq staff. And so I was the future operations officer for multinational Corps Iraq. In fact, it's funny you asked this because I had a really significant role in writing the op order for the attack on Fallujah, the second attack where, the Marine Expeditionary Force took Fallujah. And so from a headquarters standpoint, I was deeply, deeply involved in the planning and the writing of that particular order and talking to the Marine Expeditionary Force and basically given the commander gave the order to execute, but people like me, we were definitely in the COC and tracking and making sure that we had all the resources in place for them to do that attack, all of the core resources in place.
And what does COC stand for, Tony?
Combat Operations Center.
Okay, good. That's the planning cell and operations cell.
Yes, sir.
So you were a staff officer handling all those important details for the commanding officer.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
So Tony, we're going to transition to coming out of the Marine Corps, but what I'd like for you to just tell us, you uh, tell us when you retired, and at that point, tell us why you decided to go ahead and leave and retire from the Marine Corps. Hmm.
I retired in 2009 as a lieutenant colonel.
Hmm.
At the time, I thought it was the time to go ahead and retire. I was on the West Coast. My family was on the East Coast. I was doing the Geo Bachelor tour. At the time I'd done, I would say everything that I wanted to do in the Marine Corps. So for me, it was time to move on. I'd already been looked at for colonel and didn't get promoted to colonel. I could have stayed around for more looks for, promotion to '06. But at the time, I just felt like I had done everything and the time was right for me to go ahead and transition out of the Marine Corps. I
Mhm.
had no regrets about getting out at the time that I did. And I think it was a good decision for me and my family at that point. Like I said, I'd been on deployments. I've been around the world, med floats, Westpacks, Philippines, Australia, served on both coasts, served with the reserve forces. So there wasn't a lot more that I
Mhm.
could do that I hadn't already done.
I understand, Tony. So as a war fighter who had seen um, operational activity in the Marine Corps, that's you sound like you had a great career, and it was time for you to transition. Before we pull you out of the Marine Corps, could you tell us about your family life? That is your own family. How did you and your wife meet, and how did the Marine Corps impact your family life? Let's go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
My wife and I actually met in high school. We met on a leadership conference in Barry, Georgia. She's was from Savannah, Georgia, and I was from Atlanta, Georgia. And then there was a Student Government Association conference in Rome, Georgia at Barry College. And so we met there. We did not start dating until we were in college. I
Mhm.
stumbled on her during one of the, freshman week events. She was at Spelman College and I was at Clark Atlanta University. And so you know that the Atlanta University Center Consortium is made up of Spelman College, Morehouse College, Clark Atlanta University, and Morris Brown College. So we met up at this block party, and then we later that year we started dating, and then we graduated, and hey, the rest is history. We married. We've been married 36 years now.
Mm.
We were married in 1988, the year that we graduated. We've been blessed with three sons, and we have two grandchildren now. My two of my sons live in this area, and one lives in Rochester with his family. And so the family life was tough. It was tough while I was in uniform. I mentioned to you the Geo Bachelor tour my last couple of years in the Marine Corps.
Right.
I was on the West Coast, and I tried to fly home each month at least once to see the family. The boys were playing sports, and that was the reason to back up some. The reason why I decided to do a Geo Bachelor tour was so I did not take the high school. My oldest son was in the 10th grade of high school. I did not want to take him out of high school to go to California. So that's the reason why we chose to do the Geo Bachelor tour. Then when they were younger, the deployments, my wife was always with the kids, and just having to raise them almost in some ways as a single mother. In the infantry, you have workups, you have deployments, and even those things aren't even when you're deployed, but it feels like you're deployed. So, but I have a really great relationship with all of my sons. I look back and I thank God for that there's no animosity or there's no type of situation now where, they approach me and say, "Hey, Dad, if you would have been here for this or you would have been here for that, then maybe I wouldn't be in this situation." But it was definitely tough as we were going through it.
Mhm. And your wife is Tanya, right?
Yes, sir. Tanya Smith.
Okay.
Tanya Campbell Smith. Her maiden name is Campbell.
All right, Tony. You're um, all veterans, to be honest with you. I mean, once they turn a corner after 15, 16, 17 years, they will normally have a family and family members who are in school, and there are some tough decisions that have to be made on orders. Do you take your family? Do you pull your kids out of high school, or do you let them stay? And um, I've always believed that if you can give a youngster at least 2 years in the same high school, those the junior and senior year in high school, then you're doing them a great favor. If push comes to shove, you take them out of school and you pull them out the senior year, that's probably when you're not doing him or her a big favor. You can leave them in the same schools for the last couple of years, and Lord help you if you're able to get them all in this, 4 years in the same high school, then that's the best of all worlds, to be honest with you. So I know in my family, we were able to experience both sides. We had one that did 4 years, and we had one that did 2 years, and then we had one that did 1 year in high school. So I look back on those days, I said, yeah, if I had to do it again, I'd try to keep them all in high school at the same time.
Sure.
Okay, Tony. So you and Tanya, you've made the decision to retire. All right. And what when you came out of when you retired from the active duty Marine Corps, what'd you do then, Tony?
I retired from the active duty Marine Corps and, believe it or not, decided to go work as a federal civilian employee for the Marine Corps in training and education command in Quantico. I had the skill set. I knew how to train Marines. I'd been at a number of uh, TCOM commands while I was in uniform. So it was a natural fit. I initially went to work for the MACTAF and Training Simulations Division, where I was the director of operations, basically the operations officer. The name later changed to Training and Education Capabilities Division. Then the last couple of years that I was with TCOM, I worked as an analyst for Doctrine Division.
Okay, Tony, how was it? I mean, was it good? I mean, was it a good job that
It
you?
started off, sir, as a really good job.
Mhm.
Probably about 6 years into it, I started having difficulties basically with, toxic work environment, racism, and some of the just the people in that environment. So it became difficult, and that was probably some of the reasons why I retired
Mhm.
in 2023 from the federal government.
Okay. All right, Tony. So now now you're making another career shift. Okay. You've served as an active duty Marine. You retired. Now you're going to work for the federal service, and you retired from that. Then what'd you do next?
I started into real estate, so I could see the writing on the wall while I was at Training and Education Command. And so I said, hey, I need an exit strategy. And that exit strategy was to start pursuing real estate. So in 2018, I got my real estate license for Virginia. And then I was basically dual career. And I wanted to prove to myself that, real estate could feed me or would feed me. And I was able to prove that to myself. So it was just a matter of time after that. I opened my own business, True North Property Group, always, a moral compass. Real estate business is a lot about trust and, being a guide for a person every step of the way and being knowledgeable. So I wanted to name the company something where when people see it, they get that we're doing things in a with integrity at True North Property Group. And so I've since gotten my license in Maryland and also Washington, D.C. So I covered the whole DMV area. I think it's one of the best decisions that I made. And I say that because I was in the government, in the military, and I've never really experienced anything other than that type of environment. And when you start pursuing another career outside of the military, it sort of still opens your aperture to the world and to different opportunities. And so coming out here and being, in this environment, I've learned new things. Even at 52, when I got my first license, I can remember sitting in class and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I'm old. But I was almost uh, in some ways, I think I was allowing anxiety to get the best of me because I quickly learned that the average age of a real estate agent was 52. So I'm sitting in class as a 52-year-old, and so I probably somewhat nervous, but I was still able, I think, with some of the my habits from college, habits from the military. I said, hey, I need to study, buckle down, pass the exams, and get my license. So you can still start another career in your 50s. It's never really over if you have a desire to do something. Sometimes there may be a forcing function. In this particular situation, I was looking for an opportunity to do something else because I had been around the Marine Corps, but it didn't help that, I was working in a toxic environment. So that probably made it easier for me to go and say, okay, yes, let's go ahead and pursue this real estate career.
So Tony, tell us about getting started in real estate. I mean, you've been able to achieve quite a bit since 2018. But how'd you get started?
I got started real estate primarily because of friends. I have a few friends in the real estate business, and they told me, hey, you should come over, try real estate. You have the personality for it. So I think because of their influence, I decided to start taking a few classes just to increase my knowledge. In fact, I took more than a few classes. I probably took classes for an entire year before I actually took my first license for Virginia. And during that year, I learned a lot. And I said, hey, my skill set from the military is applicable in real estate. Some of the things that we do correlate directly. You're just working in another area. We're mission oriented. We know how to solve problems. We know how to interact with people. We understand checklists. We understand deadlines, and we understand as an operation officer, I always had my head on a swivel, multitask, so it was quite natural movement going into real estate where you're dealing with 4 or 5 clients. At different phases of the purchasing or selling process. It's no different than if you're in an operation and you're dealing with 4 or 5 different units, and those units are at different phases of an operation, and how we process and how we draw conclusions and make decisions in order to successfully accomplish the mission. So that year of classes basically made me understand hey, my skill set can go right over to the real estate business.
Yeah, but as you said, Tony, what really uh, got you moving in that direction was networking. That is, you had friends that had been successful in real estate, and they saw something in you that said, "Hey, Tony, you can do this job." So we're gonna give you, just a couple of pointers and send you on your way. But I think it's the networking piece which falls in line with mentoring and establishing positive relationships. Those types of things can help veterans move in any direction they care to, as long as they're willing to put the work in. As you had said, you went to one at least a year of schooling, so that's good to know, Tony. Good to know.
Yes, sir.
So now that you're a successful real estate person, how about any lessons learned you can give prospective veterans out there who are watching this video?
The biggest advice I can give to a veteran is to utilize their VA loan. I think
Mm,
that there are veterans out there that don't understand that the loan with no down payment gives them a significant advantage. There are still closing costs, 2 to 3% of the purchase price, but the ability to not have to pay 5% or up to 20% for a down payment is significant. You can use your VA loan multiple times. So it gets you into a home. And in America, I really do believe that that's the foundation of wealth building. Now that I've been in this industry and I've had clients, and I don't mean to sound morbid, but parents have passed away, and the family truly sees the value of what that home is when the house is sold and that money is dispersed to other family members. And it wasn't that those particular people were wealthy. It's just that wealth is in the home. And that's how you start building generational wealth. So I would tell veterans to take advantage of that as well, take advantage of the VA loan. And veterans that are 10% disabled or more, in some states, just being disabled, any percentage of being disabled, well, normally it's 10%, then they don't have to pay any type of uh, origination fee for the VA loan. So that's what I would pass on to a veteran. Get out there and utilize that zero down payment when you purchase a home.
Well, I can tell you, Tony, that for all the veterans out there, if you're looking to purchase real estate in the DMV, Tony Smith, True North.
Yes, sir. True North Property Girl.
True North Property. He is, listen, he is the man to see. As a matter of fact, Tony and I are working I plan to help my son purchase real estate, his first home, and I'm working with Tony Smith to ensure that we take care of this in the right way. So I can tell you, all you veterans out there, if you're looking to start that wealth building, that first building block, which is home ownership, I would say talk to Antonio Smith at True North Realty. Tony, we're the occasion of this video is Veterans Day. All right. We have Veterans Day. Today is the 1st of November. Veterans Day will go on the 11th. All right. And this video will probably be aired on that day. Could you please pass on what do you think is significant about Veterans Day, and why do you think we celebrate it? Go ahead.
I think what's significant about Veterans Day, sir, is just the service, the military service from everyday Americans, everyday people that by serving, they did something bigger than themselves, which make them extraordinary. And I think this is a profession that's a noble profession, that you join a brotherhood, a sisterhood, you join a family. And so when I think about Veterans Day, it's an opportunity for the country to recognize those that have gone and served, and in some cases have made the ultimate sacrifice. I look at my friends and fellow veterans as, family. And we have a certain shared understanding through probably hardship, through, maybe we talked about OCS and we talked about, training and just trying to get proficient, but through hardship, sometimes goodness comes from that. So when I see veterans, I think about, everyday people that now, because they served and they served their country, they went abroad, just serving made them heroes. And now they're extraordinary. So Veterans Day for me is the celebration of, extraordinary Americans that decided to put on the uniform. And our country is the country it is because of veterans and people that are currently serving. There's no doubt in my mind that the reason why America is so great is because of the military.
Mhm. Thank you, Antonio B. Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, this interview has been extraordinary. I've known Lieutenant Colonel Antonio B. Smith for, as I said, for decades, and every time I've interacted with Tony, it's always been positive. He's a very serious individual and goes about handling himself as a self-respecting individual. And we had kids who were in high school at the same time, so we see each other at basketball games, and it's always a pleasure to see Tony, and he has done well and landed on his feet after retiring from working as a civilian. The Marine Corps, landed on his feet with his own real estate business, and we're very, very proud of him. And I would just recommend for all of those who are looking to get into real estate, contact Tony and find out what it is that you need to do. But Tony Smith, we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I want to wish you and Tanya and your 3 sons and your 2 grandchildren. Are those boys, girls? What do you got?
Grandkids, sir, one girl that's 5. I'm sorry, she just turned 6 years old, and then a 8-month-old. So, and he's a boy. Girl is 6, and the young grandson is 7, 8 months old.
Hey, listen, that's the good life, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Grandchildren and at least 2 of your sons are close by, so that's great.
Yes,
But
sir. I
anyway,
wanted to see that next generation, it's important to see that next generation starting, and it makes me feel good. And I laugh again. I know, yeah, you know what people say when grandparents spoil the grandkids, because that's what we're already doing. They're so young, and so my wife and I, we thoroughly enjoy them.
Yeah, I can understand. We have small grandchildren in the area also, so that's a great thing. So what we're going to do, we'll wrap this up from Veterans in Transition. This has been an interview with Antonio B. Smith, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps, retired infantry officer, native of Atlanta, came through the Morehouse ROTC system in Atlanta, and did great things for the country and the Marine Corps as a Marine Corps officer. But he didn't stop there. He transitioned, worked as a civilian Marine, and now he has his own business here in Northern Virginia. So this to me is these are great American stories that we see from veterans, and it gives you a solid feeling of how great a shape our country is in today. And because we have these veterans out there doing great things for the community. Tony, do you have any final words before we wrap it up?
Sir, just want to thank you. I've known you for, like you said, decades. You've always been a mentor to me. And, I appreciate this. We stand on the shoulders of giants. And when I say giants, I mean shoulders like yours. And so I just want to extend, gratitude to you, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to have this interview.
Okay, thank you, Tony.